So welcome. For those that don't know me, I'm Danielle Peterson with the Board of Education. Alex and Adam from our team are here with us today as well. And our topic for this month's Data Administrators meeting is Citibot, which I think some of you have heard a little bit about and some are probably totally unfamiliar. But it's a text-based tool that we want to use for community outreach to help people be able to take that first step and connect with adult education, as well as a tool for you guys to utilize at the program level to be able to push out notifications to your existing students. So Alex Cottingham is our partner and sales rep, marketing guru, all the things that works with us on the Citibot team. And so I will probably just let you take over.
Sure. Thank you, Danielle. And just before I start, I do want to say I'm trying to share my screen, but it says I have to be an organizer. And
let me see if I can make you a host.
Cool, thanks. Just to make things easier for everyone. Okay, I think I'm able to share now. So let me pull my desktop up and we will dive right in. Let's go to the entire screen. Okay, perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. As Danielle said, my name is Alex Cottingham, and I am Citibot's Marketing and Communications Director, which also means I wear the hat of being the account manager for all of our customers. So I'm really excited to begin working with you all. As we kind of go through today, I'll just be introducing you to Citibot and going through some staff workflows that we've set up for your new service, which we are naming May. So that will stand for My Adult Education. So just to set the groundwork before we even jump into our training session today, I just kind of want to set some ground rules. And I'm sure as your profession being in education, maybe some of you will really appreciate this, but just to establish some language as we go through our training session today, there are some terms that I might use interchangeably. So Citibot or May, I might use those interchangeably, and in either case, I'm just referencing your new text service. So I apologize if I, go back and forth. I'll try to be consistent and just use one. There will be some other language, verbiage, things that come up as we go through our training. So I'll make sure to just identify that as we approach them. But just to kind of get us started, just know I might use the names of the service interchangeably with my company name. So I will also have time at the end of our training today just for questions, but I'll pause throughout our training just to check in and open up the floor to anyone who does have questions, just to make sure that as we go along through this session today that, I'm addressing everything in real time for you all. And Danielle, if you could just help kind of coordinate that with me. So I have closed Microsoft Teams, or I've minimized it on my screen, so I won't see anything in the chat. So just if anything comes up, feel free to interrupt. I won't be mad or, offended or anything like that.
Will do.
Thank you. Awesome. So we have just around 2 big things that I want to cover with y'all today. But first, let me start by just thanking Danielle for presenting what Citibot is so concisely. We'll look at some examples of how the technology works, but as she said, Citibot will be a text-based service for Utah adult education so that you can have an easy and accessible way for your students to communicate with you all. So Citibot, while we do primarily work with local governments like cities and counties throughout the US, we're so excited to kind of enter this new use case for our system and apply it to Utah adult ed. So what we do at its core is we build customer service chatbots for government. So what that means is just as you provide customer service to your students and residents, we want to take that on as well through our technology and use AI to help automate some of those processes. So AI or artificial intelligence can help us understand what it is that your students are looking for and try to take a little bit off of your staff's plate. But of course, there will be some things that they need to talk to a real person about. So we'll cover that as we get into our training. But at our core, we just want to help good people help good people. And so we can do that through technology. So there are two things that we'll review today for our session. One will be text alert notifications. So everyone, all of our program managers here today will have access to this dashboard so that you can send out relevant updates or information to students enrolled in your programs. The second thing that we'll review is Trello, which will be essentially our workflow. We've done an integration into this project management tool that is really easy to use, but I imagine it might be new to a lot of you. So we'll just kind of take everything as if this were a 101 class. And I'm here, of course, to answer any questions during our session today. And then even after this session, if you think of things that you need some help with, I'm happy to help answer those questions. I find usually people have more questions once they actually start interacting with the service. So we'll cover all of that. And Danielle, I do want to maybe connect with you after this meeting just to come up with a strategy for getting the invites to all of our program admins. So I think an easy way will just be to send an email to everyone with an invitation link to join the board. Usually that's a bit easier to manage. And I know we have quite a number of programs that we'll be bringing into Trello. So I just want to make it as easy as possible for everyone. Ooh, so that was a mouthful. I'm going to breathe for just a second. This will be our agenda that we go through today. So I might kind of come back to this just to make sure that I'm on track and that I've covered everything for you all. But let's look at kind of our first step here, which will be text alert notifications. So I'm going to first walk you all through what the resident or the student experience will be whenever they interact with May. And then I'll show you the staff workflow of how you can actually push out text messages and updates to those students. So initially, our students, and let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Ooh, not that much. So initially, for any of your students or residents to interact with May, they do have to initiate the conversation. So let's say this is my first time ever using May. I would just reach out and say hello. And then May has a dedicated number. So students would all text this one number for your service, and they will all receive this greeting back. And what we like to accomplish with this greeting is just getting students familiar with the ways that they can use the service. And of course, our big call to action, our big driving force that will help us with engagement is actually having students sign up to receive text alert updates or notifications directly to their phones. So some of you are likely already very familiar with this type of interaction. I know every time I have to go to the dentist, for example, or pay my car insurance, my vendors, my providers will send me a text, either reminder or something to that effect. So it's a similar experience that a lot of other industries are already able to provide as far as customer service experiences to their customers or residents in our case. So when your students sign up to receive a text message notification, they will actually go and enter a dashboard where they can select their program. And so I'm going to show you all the back end, the admin side of that dashboard, just so we can see how that works. So all of our admins have already been added to this dashboard. I'm going to log in. I'm a guest on the back end for training purposes, but for day to day, I won't be on here unless Danielle or someone on your team asks me to come and help with anything. So let's go ahead and log in, and then you'll have access to this link to the Notify portal is what we call it. And it's a very simple portal, which is good for people like me because there's not a lot you can break. And so you'll just use your designated email to log in, and then we actually will do a two-factor authentication so that you can access the portal. So you don't need to set up any password or try to remember or come up with a new password for this account. You'll just get a verification code sent to your email. So I'm going to go ahead and check my inbox, which I already have it at the top. And then if you try to log in and you don't see this email come through, I just recommend checking your spam folder. And if it goes there, you can just mark as not spam so that anytime you're trying to log into the portal, this is coming right to your inbox.
Okay. I'm gonna put it in this cookie cup. Thanks, Lee.
Okay, perfect. So now I've entered the Notify portal. So this is the admin dashboard. And right now there's nothing in here because we haven't sent out any alerts yet. So I'm just gonna show you all kind of the core features of this dashboard so that you at least have some context of how to use this system whenever you're ready to send out your first alert. This add numbers button, you likely will not have to worry about, but this is kind of the easiest thing to cover at this point. So as I mentioned earlier, your students are going to be opting in to receive updates, and they receive that sign up link when they text the word hello to May and that designated number. But let's say you have a student who is maybe struggling to get opted in and they're just a little confused by the process. You can manually add numbers. So that's what this button is for. That's really for one-off instances if you just wanted to kind of help someone get into the system without a lot of back and forth. I don't recommend using this particular feature if you have like a large list or a bulk list of numbers. That's something that's better sent to the Citibot team so that we can just import that for you. We have a not as easy to use system to do that, so we just let our developers manage that. But primarily, we can expect that most of your signups are going to come through this interaction where your students text hello to May. So let's look at kind of our two key features. Sorry, was there?
No.
Okay. So I'll just continue on. So one thing that I always recommend doing before you send out any sort of alert is use the direct message feature, and that will allow you to test the copy of the message that you want to send out. And I'll explain why that's really helpful and important here in just a moment. But as you enter this next dashboard, you'll see that there are some guidelines to help you craft your first outbound message. So think of your messages as a tweet. Twitter used to have a very limited character rules that you could send out. And we recommend keeping your messages as short as possible so that they come through to the residents as one text bubble. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. Some carriers, so carriers could be AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. Some carriers, if messages are too long, will actually split the message into two separate bubbles, which isn't the end of the world. But if the carriers are sending it through the messages out of order, your resident could get their second half of that message first and the actual beginning of the message second, which again, not the end of the world, but it could be a little confusing. And we want to be really mindful of that user experience, of course. So let me just send myself a message here. And I'm just going to send this to my number, which I'll pull up my messages here in my computer for you. Another thing, you can send links in your messages. So any of these outbound alerts, you can certainly include links. I always like to test those in this portal as well before I send it to any of my users who have signed up for alerts, because I want to make sure that that link is working properly on my phone. So I'm just going to send a really easy message for right now. And because I'm in the direct message feature and I've put in my phone number, this is only going to come to my phone. I could easily just put in Danielle's number here if I wanted, or someone on my team if I wanted to have them look at this with me and we weren't together or in the same room. But for me, I just like to send it to myself and make sure. So once you've crafted your message, you can just select send, and you'll see that we do count the characters at the bottom. Truthfully, I've entered more than 160 characters and gotten away with it. So I think the carriers are a little bit more friendly to longer messages now, but you wouldn't want to send a novel or something like that. So always good to test before you send out any alerts. And then it will take you right back to your home page once you're done. And I can see over here, I've already texted May, so I've said hello, and then I have this set up already. And then I can see here at the bottom of my conversation is the alert that I just sent out. So let's do, well, we're not going to send anything because no one has signed up, but let's look at this other feature for New Blast. So let's say I'm satisfied with this particular message and I'm ready to send this to my program, the students in my program. You'll navigate over to this far left button where it says New Blast, and you'll see that this one looks a little bit different. So the admin dashboard is a shared dashboard amongst all of the programs. You all are kind of our first large use case that we've had. So we'll be working on some future edits to hopefully make this a bit easier and cleaner, as far as not having to look at this entire list of all of the programs that you all offer. But for now, we just want to, get you all up and running as soon as possible. So you will just you'll have this exact experience for the time being when you log in. So when you're ready to send out your message, again, you'll see kind of this guidance for sending out the alert, and you'll actually want to select the category. So what program are you trying to send this alert to? So you would just select whichever one relates to your department. And then Danielle, I know that you and your team kind of have like this larger admin role. If you needed to send something to say all students, whether it's all of our programs are going to be virtual until this date and time, then you can actually send that to everyone and you could select all of the programs to receive that message. And again, you would type your message here and select send, and then it would take you back to the home page. So once you all send your first alert, you'll actually start to see that information populate here in the dashboard. So you'll be able to see the copy that was sent. A little envelope will show up here. You can see what category or what program that alert went to, who sent it, so which one of our admins was responsible for sending that last message. And then you'll see the number of students who received that. So essentially the number of people who received that particular notification. So that is the Notify dashboard. Before I move on, does anyone have any questions about this dashboard, or would you like me to revisit any of the features that we've looked at so far? Okay.
So we've got a little conversation going on in the chat box just about how do we get everyone's numbers. And we do have a couple of options. So we can upload the numbers that we have from Utopia as a bulk upload, either statewide or by program. Or we can do kind of a marketing campaign and a blast with all of our students and ask them to opt in. And so I wanted to get a little bit of your guys' feedback as far as what do you feel like is going to be most effective? I'm sure an upload is probably the easier option to ensure that we have all numbers, but then the campaign note allows students to know that they're opting into something, which either way, they can easily opt out. It's just a text stop and it will remove them from that list, whether we've uploaded them or not. So for those that are on the call, do you have any thoughts or preference as far as how we kind of roll out with those initial group of students?
I think bulk upload. What do you think?
Initially, Danielle, I'm thinking bulk upload, but then what if their number changes and they want to communicate with us? Is there a way that we can put a widget on our web page saying this is a communication tool? Here's your opt-in, send something, and someone from the program will contact you? I'm worried about maintenance because our population's phone numbers are changing daily.
Mm-hmm. Well, so every time a student messages the number, so if they just send hello to the number, they will get that auto reply that will say, give them the option to opt into future messages. And then they can select what program they're associated with. So that could be that you just have posters up in your program or up on your site that say, like, let us know if your number changes. Because that would be the same process if we were to have everyone opt in. And Alex, jump in if you have better ideas.
Yeah, I'm happy to do a bulk upload. I just want to kind of be a voice of caution that if you don't have permission from these people to use their phone number for communications, like relevant to their program, it's kind of like email marketing, right? We can't force opt-in people. So I would just want to make sure, and I lean on our customers to provide us numbers that they know are like fair to opt in. But I couldn't like go search for someone and be like, you're going to get this now, because like they have no idea what this service is. So that's why we do put together the marketing campaign for you all. So I don't know the details, but as long as, you know, your students have given you their information under the impression that you would be giving them information through this number, then that's fine. As far as if people's numbers have changed, you know, I wouldn't carry that burden too heavily as a program admin, because your students can just text May from whatever their new number may be and opt in. So if, like, let's say we uploaded a list of numbers and there was a number that's no longer valid, whoever is the new owner of that number, if anyone, they would get it, and then they would have the option to just say stop and opt out from that. I'm not the right person for this communication. But any person, like if they got a new phone or something to that effect, can text the number and sign up that way.
So would it be something that maybe we would include in our orientation, and then every time they re-register, if their phone number changed, they could opt in during that orientation if they want those communications?
I would love
Yeah,
that.
certainly could.
And Danielle and I have talked about that. So if we get any time at the end of the call, I'm happy to kind of review some of the marketing materials we'd put together. But that was a question I had posed, I think on our last call as well, was, is there any existing kind of documentation that we can include the information so that as students are kind of getting this download of everything relevant to their program, they also see the May number and can opt in that way.
Yeah. And Marcy, you asked about, you know, whether we could put this off until next year, because I know you've got a system in place. And I know many programs have tools that they're currently using, whether it's Google Voice or Remind or other tools. So your usage is going to vary by your site. If you've got something that's working for you, you are not required to use this tool, but we wanted to have something available to all programs. So if you got something that's working great, then you just may choose not to have your students opt in and put flyers all over your program at this point. So.
Great point, Danielle. Any other questions before we move into the next part of our session here?
There's one more, but I think you're going to get to it as you move forward in your presentation.
Okay, sure. So let's take a look at Trello, which is kind of like why we're all here today. So I'll send in an example for you all, but before we kind of get into the nitty gritty on that, I just want to take a look at Trello here, which again, Danielle and I will work on sending an invitation to everyone. So don't look around your inbox just yet. We're just here to kind of absorb the information at this time. So you'll get an invite to join the Trello board. And once you log in, you'll see this dashboard. I will start off by saying that Trello is a shared workspace. So this is a virtual environment, but very much a shared experience. So whatever changes I make today or I'm doing in my day-to-day will actually be reflected on this space. So it would change how Danielle sees it on her end as well. So this isn't a unique kind of silo just to you. We're all going to be working together in here for those who do end up using May and that text service. So let me start by identifying some key terms as we're looking at Trello here today. And this will help just ensure that we're all kind of on the same page as we go through all of the steps for this particular training. So when you join the Trello board, you'll see that there are columns, and most of them align with the program names that you're all in charge of. So these columns are called lists in Trello terms. So I might say columns or lists as we go through this training. And then within each of our lists, there are little squares, which are known as cards. So I'll try to say cards as we go through. And a lot of the cards on our list at this time are primarily for just setting the groundwork so that we know when we log in essentially what we're looking at and what each list's purpose will be. So of course, each of the department lists, or the program lists, I should say, are pretty self-explanatory. Those are for you all. But there are a few that just will help with our workflow and that directly relate back to May and the Citibot service that we put together for you. So When you think about accessing Trello, there are essentially two ways that you can get to the board. One, once you get your email and the join link, you'll probably open this in your browser. So Google Chrome, Safari, Firefox. I'm using the desktop app. So luckily the experience, whether you're on the app or on your mobile or on your device browser, is the same. But I do invite, if you are an app person, you're welcome to download this app on your computer. It's available for Apple and Microsoft products, so you're kind of covered no matter which way you go. Let's see if there was anything else, and I'll show you where you can download that as well. So let's look at some of our other lists on our board here. And you have quite a few programs, as I said. Some other lists that are noteworthy and not specific to any single program are going to be the needs review list here, which we'll cover later in our training. We also have a completed list. So I've already got an example in there, which we'll cover here in just a moment. And then there's a resources list. So anyone is welcome to access this list and the contents on it. So each of the cards, if you actually click on any of the cards or the squares in Trello, you'll be able to look at the back of it. So I've put quite a few resources together for you all, just anticipating that this will be your first experience in Trello for many of you. So I have your text alert number. So this is the number that students will text whenever they want to interact with May or sign up for those alerts. And our training slides from today as well, if you ever want to go back and look at them, although I don't think they're as helpful, not in the context of this training. You also have the notified dashboard. So again, you all have already been added to that. And if you need to send out an alert, you can just do that right here. And then Keen and the Google marketing assets, those are more geared towards Danielle and our admin team. So we'll get to that, but essentially we'll be putting together monthly data reports and sending that over to you all. And how we do that is we track all of that in Keen. So again, I'll have your admins added to that, but anyone is welcome to the information. I just find most customers don't need it or have time for it, which is why we do the monthly reports that we send out to our primary contacts. And then, as I said earlier, we do put together a marketing campaign to help raise awareness around May, and that students can text to Utah Department of Education now. So if we have any time at the end, I'm happy to just do a quick overview of that if it interests anyone, but I won't hold everyone up to look at that. And then additionally, you don't have to really worry about these cards. It just explains again the things that we're covering today on our training. But if you want some help and quick tips, I've outlined just a couple of things here. One being my contact information should you need it. You can also just @ me in any of the cards as we go forward. But I expect most of my communications will primarily come through Danielle and or her team. But as I've already mentioned, everything in this board will be visible to all staff. So Trello is strictly a staff-facing system. Anything in here that is changed will be visible to other program admins, but nothing in here is going to be visible to your students who sign up for alerts or anything like that. So, and I've just emphasized that here again as well, that they can't see anything within Trello, and we'll cover that here in just a moment when we go through our example message that I'll send in. And again, if you are an app person and you want to download Trello, you can download it on your computer or your mobile device. I don't know how far down the rabbit hole you all want to go or what your kind of standards will be as you start using this service if you're one of those departments. But I have the mobile app as well, which I really enjoy. And so I've just hyperlinked the page where you can get that information. So that is our quick Trello high level overview. Are there any questions before we take a look at some of our workflows that we've set up for you all? Perfect. So before I go into an example, which we'll get to here in just a moment, I'll put this in my invitation email to everyone. There are two important steps that you'll want to take in order to receive notifications when something has come into Trello for your department to review. So the main things that would come in here are messages from your students. So as I mentioned earlier, we have set up this customer service chatbot to help answer questions that your students may have. Let's say they have something very specific that isn't general knowledge, and essentially they just could really use the help of one of their staff members or program admins. Then those are the messages that will be coming into you all. So this is what that looks like. But before I go through that workflow, as I said, I want to make sure that you all are set up to receive email notifications, because I do not expect anyone to keep Trello open all the time like I do. So you can actually just set up notifications so that you receive an email if and when a message comes into your department list. So the way that we will do that, I'll use the Ashley Valley Education Center as my example today. Let's say I'm one of the admins for this program. The first thing I want to do is watch my list. So whichever list here correlates to my department. And then under the list actions, you'll see these settings to select watch as one of them. And I know that's enabled now because I can see my eyeball and there's a check mark. So that's step one. Step two will actually be enabling those email notifications. So underneath my actual account settings, which I have my photo uploaded, but you'll likely just see your initials here in the top right corner. You can go to settings, and it will take just a moment. And notifications will actually be your second option. You'll just want to change the email frequency. And I believe it automatically goes to periodically. So periodically means you'll get an email at the top of the hour if new cards have entered your list. So essentially you'll just get a recap or an overview of the cards that have come in. It'll just be in a quick list form, like you've got three new cards in Trello since 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock today. If you don't get anything new added to your list, you will not get an email from Trello. So I really appreciate that. And I just find that periodically is a lot easier to manage than instantly, because instantly you would get an email for every single card that comes into your list. And for me, I feel like I just get enough emails. So I like to get them periodically from Trello. And then once you get into your Trello board here and you're like, what were the steps again? I've actually outlined them on your department contact cards for each of your lists. And I've already identified our admins per Danielle's feedback. So you have a notifications setup checklist. So you'll want to watch your list and then update the email notification settings, which again, we just went through step by step. But if you need to reference it, I really like lists, so I gave you all a very short one. Okay, so I think we are ready to look at our first example workflow. Before I jump into that, I just want to make sure there aren't any questions at this point, or if anyone needs me to set up my email notification settings again, I'm happy to at this time. Awesome. Hopefully 2 steps is easy. So let's look at the resident, that student experience of what is going to happen when they send in a message to you all. So as we saw in our greeting for May a little earlier, the greeting is helping us teach students how they can use the service. So they can ask questions or they can reach out to staff members. So again, I have an issue or a question that requires a real person and the AI just wasn't able to find the information that I needed. So your students will reply with the word message to May, and this is all happening on their phone. And then they'll receive a link to fill out a short form with the content of their message. And then that is what comes into Trello. And here's an example of what that looks like and what we'll be reviewing in Trello today. So this is what that form looks like. Again, it's really short, and we're capturing that student's information, their name, their email, the content of their message. And because this is being submitted through their messaging service on their phone, we actually don't need to ask them for their phone number because this is already being captured just by the nature of the channel that it's coming through. So I've submitted my message. So I'll be your student, your example student today, hopefully a good student. And then I can see here in this inbound column that message has come in. And there are a couple of things that happen to all messages that enter Trello. So one is I'll be adding a start date. So today was the first day that this one came in. And then if you open this card, you'll see there's a bit of information here for you. So one, I can see the message that was submitted. So whatever that question or issue is that the student is trying to report. Here's all of my contact information once again. So my student name, my phone number, my email, and then source will always say SMS because May is strictly a text-based service. Some of our customers have a web-based service, and so we have to differentiate between the two. But again, yours will always say SMS, which is just text message. And then you'll also notice on every card, a comment is automatically posted. It looks like it's from me, but I'm not doing this every time by hand. And this is just a reminder that whenever you are following up with your students and trying to answer their question, that you need to contact them using their contact information above. So you would email them or call them if that's something that you do as part of your normal workflow. I won't impose my will on anyone. I encourage you to use whatever is your current workflow, but you will have the information available whether you want to call or text. And I post this comment on every inbound card because maybe a few days from now or a couple of weeks from now down the road, you might forget this fact that students will never see anything posted in Trello. So if you try to reply to your student by leaving a comment in this activity, they're never going to get it because this particular workflow is not, it's strictly staff facing. So again, Trello is just a back end staff facing system. And that's why your students won't see these comments because they're not a part of this system. So let me pause there.
Alex, there is a question
Sure.
about multiple languages.
Mm-hmm.
And really that's the question. What happens when students send in another language?
Yeah, so right now this is going to be an English-based version. We have some very minimal Spanish, and by minimal, I mean if someone says hola instead of hello, it will respond. It will give them back this greeting. But otherwise, every interaction they have on the text service is going to be in English. You can send out alerts in English and Spanish, which I'm happy to go back and cover. But if you wanted to include essentially in any outbound messages like the one I sent earlier, I've seen some cities have one line of English and then the second line or second kind of paragraph in Spanish. But otherwise, this system is purely going to be operating in English at this time.
Is there any plans to make updates? We work with a broad variety of students speaking up to about 30 languages throughout our system. So
yeah, so there is, but it's not going to be something that happens like next month or the month after that, just because all of our logic and communications has been coded in English. So we would have to translate or find a tool that would help translate all of this. So we don't have, like, I personally don't have a kind of path forward on how the development team is going to do that because there are a lot of different options. So just currently, I would not anticipate kind of offering that. And again, that could change down the road because you all do have so many programs, but May is representative of adult education as a whole and not single entity programs. So let's say for one particular program, as you're marketing it, you can tell students, for example, like you can expect our alerts to be in English and Spanish, right? You would have to manually translate all of that and send it out. But again, I know that's kind of a lot of work. Currently, we just don't have, we're a small company. I don't know if I made us look big by how organized it is, but we just have quite a lot of development work and not necessarily a team like Google to translate everything at this time.
thanks, that answered that.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, thank you for that question. It's certainly something that we want to be really mindful of. As it turns out, I think some of this is harder to do on the back end than maybe it looks so far because we built a lot of it out already. But we wouldn't want to, we would want to give the proper energy and attention to translating everything, because I don't know if you all experience this in education, but in local government, Muni Speak doesn't translate really well on government sites. If you use like a Google Translate widget, like it can kind of get the job done, but I think there's a better way to do it. So again, there's just a lot of development. Essentially, I think what we would have to do if we were going to offer, say, this service in Spanish is we'd have to build out probably an entire separate system to accommodate that, just because, again, we want to be really mindful, and we're also quite a small team at this time. So if once we get to those stages and are prepared to roll out additional languages, I'll certainly let all of our customers know, because it's something that is necessary in communities all over the US. So let me go back into our training mode here, because I want to be mindful of our time, and I have two things that I want to show you all. So while this particular message has come in to the inbound column and it has stayed here, you all had provided me quite a number of keywords, which I am so appreciative of, because that has been built into Trello already. So those keywords will help auto route messages to the appropriate departments. So right now I know Kelly, I don't know if you're on our call today, but she's our admin. So what that means is for messages that do not get auto routed, that don't trigger a keyword routing, we need someone to kind of help get this where it needs to go, right? We need to have essentially a gatekeeper to monitor anything that's not being automatically sent to the correct department. So while this one in particular just stayed in inbound, I was careful not to include any keywords. Just know that as these messages come in real time, they will be going directly to the department relevant to any keywords that have been entered in that student's message. So let's say in my example that I had a keyword that was related to Ashley Valley. Then that card would have initially come into inbound, but then it would have populated here in this list. And because I'm watching this list, I would have received my email notification that I have a new message from one of my students. So I'm going to open this message, and I'm going to take you all through two scenarios of what I expect will happen as we get these messages in from students. So the first and the easiest is I have a message. I've emailed my student, sent them the information or the answer that they needed to help them. And now I'm done with this card, and I don't need it sitting in my list because I'll probably have new issues coming in that I need to address. So the workflow for essentially closing out one of these cards once it's done is using our automation buttons over here on the right-hand side. So you'll see there are a few things, but the most important one to you all in your workflow will be the two buttons underneath automation on the right-hand side. So in this case, move to completed will just send this over to that completed list that we saw earlier. And I'm going to scroll over there because I don't want to move this card there. Yay, field trip. Okay. So here in my completed column, I can see what one of those messages looks like when it's been completed. So a tag is going to be added. It's already queued up in this list really nicely and neatly. And then my end date has been marked as well. So we can see essentially how long a card had to be worked on. So it came in on the 4th, and this one was completed on the 4th. So that's all those dates mean. And then if I open that card, I can see, I'm going to hide the details because I don't care about all those things, but I can see any comments. So Danielle and I actually worked together on this card to resolve this issue. In this case, we just needed a smiley face. I wish everything were that easy, but that's just if you ever needed to go back and look at, what was done. I recommend as a best practice, just leaving a comment on how and when you followed up with your student. So if I had emailed the student, I could just leave that here and then save it, and it would time and date stamp it. It doesn't matter to me which one you do or if you even do that, but just as a best practice, it's probably nice to have something to reference back to if needed. And so there's my 2 cents there. But let's think about another potential workflow. So let's say that this message came into my list and I reviewed it, and then I realized something about this message Maybe it was the keyword routing came to my department, but this is not the right department for this student, or this isn't one of my students. So I can't actually help them, but it needs to go to the correct place. Rather than leaving the burden on you all to figure out what each department does or what students they serve, to make things easy, just know if this card is not for you and you can't help that student, you have a second automation button to move this card to needs review so that one of our admins can get it to the right place. So I think you all probably have enough to do day to day that you don't have a lot of time to figure out what all of the programs are responsible for. So let's just keep it easy and go ahead and move this card to needs review because it actually was not meant for my program. So I can see now that the card is gone from my list. And if you're ever curious, this is what that workflow looks like from the admin side. So any cards that need to be rerouted will have this review pending label when they are brought into this list. And then Kelly is assigned so that she gets her email notifications to come in and check out the cards that need her attention. And then let's say that this was actually meant for Washington County. Then Kelly is just going to send this to the correct program. And our labels and assignments are done. It'll be reassigned to my admins for Washington County. And then once Washington County reviews the student request, let's say I emailed student on 120, you can save that. And then now I'm just going to move this to completed. And that would close out that workflow or that scenario of what happens if something comes to my department that was misrouted for some reason. So those are the two scenarios that I could think of, and kind of your solutions to resolving those issues, or at least getting them to the right person to check on them. Are there any questions, or do we need to review any of those automations that we've covered so far? Awesome. Now I just want to check back to my agenda here and make sure. So we've just gone through a message submission and then the two automations, AKA workflows that have been built out for you all. We're going to move just a little bit into Trello like 201. So all of that was 101. And this may or may not make any difference in the world to some of you, but I'm going to just jump onto this card with Kelly. So due to the keyword automations that you all have sent me, those keywords will help me direct cards to the correct department. And then once everyone joins the board, I have a final automation to build where I'll be assigning users, just how I assign myself to this card, to cards that enter your list. So that will just kind of be a fallback to the email notifications. I just want to make sure that people get a notification. You won't get multiple notifications. Just know that you'll see kind of your little icon pop up on the cards that enter your list once you're in the board. So let's say I want to look at the entire board, but I don't really want to look at all of the other cards for the other departments. I know that could probably get overwhelming. So you can set a filter on your board. And this is going to slightly contradict something that I so intensely expressed earlier, in that Trello is a shared workspace environment. So your changes will reflect to everyone. So whenever I move a card to needs review, Danielle could see that I had put that card there. Kelly could see that I had put that card there. Everyone, again, is sharing this space and the experience. But one exception to that is if I filter the board, only I can see this filter. And so I'll show you what that looks like. And again, this is, if you didn't want to see all of these other cards, you can actually filter the board by cards that are only assigned to you. So it's not going to completely, change your outlook of the board, but it does kind of just make this a cleaner experience, and that I'm not seeing all of the cards that are inbound or all of the cards that Ashley Valley is responsible for. I'm just looking at the things that are in my list and that I've been assigned to. So you can filter by cards assigned to you. You could filter by I would say cards assigned to you is probably the best way. So I'm going to stop there before I get ahead of myself and say something dumb. So just a little kind of trick if that's something you're interested in, just setting that filter view so that you're only seeing cards that are assigned to you at this time. And then that is kind of my Trello 101. I have no additional or new information to offer you all, but I am here if you have any questions or if you'd like to review any of the things that we've covered in the last hour, including the alert portal if needed. Awesome. Have we done it? Have we Trello trained? I'll pull up our
It's pretty quiet.
Yay, you guys make someone like me feel so good about what we've covered. Either I know exactly what I'm talking about or I've completely damaged everyone on the call and you're too scared to speak. But I hope it's the first part and that everything was simple and easy to understand. Again, we'll send you an invitation to join Trello. So maybe once you get in here, the questions will come and that's perfectly okay. I'm happy to answer them. I'm certainly that way. I usually can think of things once I put my hands on them, so to say, and start working with them. And so I'm looking forward to those. But it's been a pleasure. I'm just going to take myself off of some of this so that I'm not imposing on anyone's kind of workflows here. Awesome.
Well, as far as launch, we're getting ready to probably push this out over the next couple of weeks. We just needed everyone to join that board. So those invitations will go out for everybody to access the board. And then we're putting on an FAQ document onto our adult ed website at USBE. That's one piece that we didn't talk about, but for some of those most common questions, how do I get my GED transcript? Some of the things that we frequently get in our office will have automated responses to. And then if that automated response doesn't answer their question, they'll still have the option to send a personalized message and get a response through the Trello board from one of us. And we'll continue to build up that knowledge base as we see what types of questions are coming in so that we can automate what we can. But the goal is for all students to get a personalized response as quickly as possible. So watch for those invitations, and then we'll also be pushing out to programs the marketing materials. So we have like some Facebook banners and images that you can share on your social media, on your program web pages. You can have flyers shared among your community, and we want you to have access to all of that.
For sure. And that's a great point, Danielle. And I know we have just a couple of minutes. And if any questions come up in the next few minutes, feel free to interrupt me. But here's just an example of what that marketing kit looks like. And Danielle, I'll be working with you, of course, to identify any other design needs or opportunities, but just so that you all have something to reference. And I also have your template link, Danielle. So I know that was something you'd asked for, to be able to use this kind of design work for other needs for Utah adult ed. But it would be super awesome, and I would be forever grateful if you all used any of our designs that we put together for you all just to help promote the text service. So there are a few options in here that you can choose from, but all social media friendly, and just I hope they're a great asset to you all in your efforts to raise awareness around May, but also just helping the students in your community with their education needs. But yeah, we can certainly check in, Danielle, closer to launch, and even post-launch. If you all find that you need something else designed, just let me know, and I'm happy to make additional assets for you all. And then Danielle, and no one has to stick around for this kind of next part. I know it's probably near the end of your day, but for the invitations, so I'll craft together an email. Do you want me, Danielle, to hand that off to you to send to everyone, or is it okay if I like BCC all of our admins to that to invite them to Trello?
Maybe send it to our office to push out, just because I don't want things to get lost in spam folders or report you to our phishing services.
Yeah. Like this link guy. No, I'm kidding. I think that's a very good plan. I'm always super mindful, but I was like, I better just ask and not assume before I dump other things on you to do. So I'll get you an invitation email draft to send out to everyone with like step by step how to get into Trello, and I'll connect with you as well once we have our kind of knowledge base set up on the website so that we can start pulling that into the system as well.
Perfect. So for those of you that are on our Utopia admin mailing list, you can expect to see that probably early next week.
Perfect. Great. I'll stop sharing and join the good people on the side. So I think we covered all of the questions, but again, if y'all have anything after today's training, feel free to reach out. But it was such a pleasure talking to you all. Thank you for your patience and for your questions. And we're so excited to launch May with you and start helping your students get the information they need.
All right. Thanks, Alex. And thanks to everybody. I'm going to stop the recording, but I'll hang on here for just a minute if anybody has any questions.